Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev. Good morning.
Good morning.
The snow, oh my word,
Love it. Love it.
beautiful.
Honestly. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I went for a hike yesterday by myself and just dressed warm and stuff. And it was just such an amazing walk. It's like there was a bird in front of me that would kind of flit into different places, almost like it was guiding me on my path. And it was such a beautiful day. There's no way. Before I would have stayed in, before when I was in a different mental space or a different spiritual space, I would have stayed in. Oh, I'm not going to go out inside and play. You guys go play. I'm just going to stay inside where it's warm. And now it's like, no, I want to be out in it. The whole landscape is so different when you're walking through it. And it's been beautiful.
It really is. And honestly, I'm not really a cold weather type person.
Me neither.
And in our area, when it snows, I know it's only lasting a couple days. And what we got yesterday, which covered the ground, I think we got a couple inches maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like halfway melted already. So I'm all right with that. The only thing is the safety of, early in the morning with the ice, but it is beautiful. I like the scenery. The mountains all the way around us are white, and I like that for sure. But I know it's leaving soon.
Yes. Yes, and I agree with you. If I had to live in this all the time, no, it's not
Yeah,
for me. But we get a taste of it, and it's like, oh yeah, we're solid, we're
yeah,
good.
we're good.
And gosh, the rains we've been getting too have been really nice. It's been something shifted. I don't know. It's been nice because we've gotten some good rains and stuff. It's getting moisture into the soil, because I know a lot of our wildlife and the cows and stuff that are free range running around and stuff. There hasn't been a lot of food lately, so
Yeah, the
this is
ranchers have had to feed.
yeah, it's a
My
welcome.
we're good friends with with a rancher, and Aaron will go out and help them once in a while to feed and water, and yeah, so it's just all praying for the rain
That's right.
or the moisture anyway. So what's happening in your world?
Just really enjoying things. I'm spending more time with meditation. It's so funny. I'll get little Facebook notices of memories, and like I don't even know how many years ago. It's from 4 to 8 years ago. I posted something about meditation is very important. You need to, I keep getting these signs in my face, and I've been saying it ever since. And it's like
Like,
just now I'm starting to follow through because it's important. But it's just such a. There's so many things that happen during that space when you get into that little quiet space. You don't even realize that you're in that space until you start hearing someone talk to you, or you hear a voice, or you hear sounds, or you start seeing images or colors or whatever it is. You just don't It's just something that is such a relaxed place that you don't even know that you're there until you're there. And then as soon as you bring your attention to it, you like pull yourself away. So it's practicing that. I have, it's just a crazy thing, and I don't know if we've talked about it, but my dreams these days, probably for the last 6 months or so, I'm in control of my dreams. I'm rationalizing, I'm questioning things like, why is that happening? Why are you doing it? Like I'm active, involved in my dreams. And something strange happens, and I noticed that I started to putting words to it. A lot of times, and I don't even know what it means yet, but when I'll go to wake up in the morning, sometimes I'll see myself like as if I was in something where I'm like over the ground or over the carpet or over whatever I'm coming into. Like I don't remember where I was, but then I start zooming in and I start seeing the carpet up real close, or I start seeing the dirt up real close, as if I'm hovering over it. My body's just hovering over it, and then zooming into it like I'm getting focused. It's just the craziest thing. And then at that point, I'll start opening my eyes, but I'm awake, but I'm recognizing I'm coming back. I don't know. It's not even maybe the same carpet or the dirt. I've seen the desert quite a few times, so zooming in on it. It's just a different stuff. It's been
Wow.
fun stuff.
Yeah, interesting. That's cool. So have you looked into anything about dreams, like done any research about it, or have you read any books recently that would give you insight?
As far as that part goes, I don't, because that doesn't feel like I don't know what the dream was about, but I'm coming back into a space. I don't know. You know, I've always wanted to astral travel. I think there's been maybe a couple times that I've actually felt myself flying, where I was flying along the coast, where I was feeling that kind of stuff. I don't know. I feel like there's so much. It's like you can label all this stuff. That I feel like remote viewing might be part of what's going on, or that I'm coming into a space, because I can recognize even in meditation that I can zip right in front of somebody's face. So I started kind of pursuing more information on that, because I think that we do all these things. We just don't have some of these things we've been doing forever, like these dream, like zooming in on stuff. It's been like probably the last 6 months to a year, but I wasn't putting any energy to it, or I wasn't really thinking much about it besides like that's cool, like whatever that's about, you know, and not asking questions. But there's so many things I think that we do that are natural to us that we don't even recognize that we're doing it. So
Yeah.
now I'm at a point where I want to pay more attention to that. I want to grow that. I want to be aware of that, because to me that's me. We talked last week about trust, and that's me learning to trust my intuition. That's me, because I don't always do that. I'm not any different from many other people. I just don't. And I think that half the time we don't even realize we're not in that space of paying attention to our own intuition, and we're just doing things back into autopilot and stuff. So I'm learning just to trust myself, and with that, of course, we know it brings confidence. We talked about that too, and it is bringing more of a confidence. It's just part of the whole process, really. Like our journey in our lives, when we look back at things, everything happened for a reason. Massage for me happened for me to start feeling energies and stuff. Everything, and one thing led to the next.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I started energy work in my early 30s, and it was to build confidence, because I was the introvert. The lady that was mentoring me at the time, a psychic medium, and she was telling me that, she kept telling me for like 3 years, you're a healer. And to tell somebody who is an introvert and low self-confidence, I kept telling her, there's no way I'm doing that. No way. I fought her for 3 years. And every time I met with her, now I met with her about 3 or 4 times a year. So it was almost like quarterly. Because I was moving through the heaviness of my history and doing some healing. And I remember like 3 years goes by, and this one day she just reamed me up one side and down the other, and was very adamant that I was a healer and I need to get my shit together and I need to do this work, especially in our area, because there were so many people that could relate to my story who needed me. I mean, these were her words. Like, she was if she could have, held me up against the wall and shook me, she would have. But so I started practicing the energy work with people I knew, of course, to build that confidence. And then it just grew from there. And the journey of that has been quite interesting to bring me where I am today. But yeah, I mean, the energy work right into being certified as a Reiki practitioner to a master, and growing in understanding energy and understanding me as an energetic person and spirit and all that. It's, a similar avenue of you using massage for that.
True.
So
it's awesome.
It really is. I mean, I was scared to death of it in the beginning. I was terrified of it, because as a growing into an intuitive healer, and knowing, like, as a psychic medium, my mentor being a psychic medium, and how she gave guidance to people, and knowing as an intuitive healer that I would be giving guidance to people, it was taking a responsibility of knowing, like, when I tell somebody something, they may or may not act upon it, with one, but if they act upon it and it doesn't turn out the way they are expecting, they're going to point the finger at me and blame me. So these were things I had to grow past, grow in myself and in my confidence. So building that confidence took a while. because there were several layers that were happening also with that. So being an empath and feeling people's energy, I had to learn all of that. Learn about being an empath, learn about intuition, learn about chakras, right? So there's so many layers on top of being an energy worker. And here's the thing, the more you practice it, the more confident you get.
It's true.
And not every person is the same. Every person that we encounter as energy workers, they all have their stories. There's a basic underlying story that we all have of not being good enough, wanting to be loved and accepted. But each time, so when we see, and I would imagine you encounter this as well, that each time I could have one client and I would see them 50 times, we're going to have, both of us are going to have 50 different experiences because both of us are growing.
True.
Both of us are changing. Our energy is changing. Our mindset's changing. Like everything about us is changing. So each time we come together, it's a new experience. So it was never boring by no means, because if something's repetitive and I'm just doing the same thing over and over, I get bored. Energy work is not boring by no means, even if it was the same person that I saw every week. It's really an incredible experience.
It really is. It really is. And you talk about that stuff because I know when I first started practicing Reiki and, any of the healing modalities, when you first start doing it, you're so worried about doing something wrong. I was so worried about doing something
Yes.
wrong. Like, I'm not doing it right and trying to go by the book. And I remember my instructor, telling me, like, you just got to go with how it flows. It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
What does that mean?
That's not what you wrote down in the book. I mean, that's not what's in this book right here that I'm learning right now. But the thing is, that's just trusting your intuition, which is so foreign. It's so easy for me to say that now because before I had different, like we said, you were saying it's different with that person each time because you've learned something, you guys have both grown. I've looked back at some things and it's like I can't even think the same way that I thought at that time about a situation or experience or anything because I'm not even that same person. I've always heard Abraham or Esther Hicks stating, you can't go back. Once you've gone forward like this, there's no going back. There isn't. You can revisit it, you can look at it, but it's going to look different. It might even hurt more if you look back at it and beat yourself up because you got new tools and it's easier to see what you could have done differently. But man, at the time, you didn't have any of that information. And it can be perceived so differently. The whole learning experience can be perceived differently. But I think a lot of that comes from childhood as well. Sometimes school wasn't made fun or you were picked on or made feel like, and I was afraid, God, I would never have raised my hand. Gee, no way. I mean, maybe I did early on, but it's like after that, no way. I didn't want nobody was looking at me. I didn't want none of that attention. No, didn't want any part of it. Intuition was not even involved. Imagine that being a kid, that really we come in here with certain tools, that those tools kind of get pushed aside or you're not even able to recognize them anymore by whoever's been raising you, whether it's been the TV, your parents, family members, teachers, whatever. It's like it changes everything. But that intuition is like huge. I was listening to this guy, Dames, I think his last name is Dames. He was a general in the military, and he would teach this remote viewing. And he stated, this should be taught in freaking elementary school. Like these kids, our kids are so amazing that come in here and they're so natural that we could be teaching them other things so they can explore on it because there's so much more from that remote viewing, that everything you can do so many other things. So if you think about that, there's no secrecy. We talked a long time ago, you brought up that there was a tribe somewhere in the world that communicated only by telepathy. And it's like, there's no secrets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything is right out front. So there's no, you know what I mean? To me, I would feel like there's no judgment in that type of environment. There's no expectations. Everybody's probably more relaxed and more at ease because we're not worried about what somebody else is thinking. Life could be so much different.
It really could. And And I'm going to hit upon when Bev mentioned, like, when you've grown and you've done healing and you're in a new space, you're moved more into a loving space instead of that angry state or that resentful state, the shame and the guilt, that when you're in the lower vibrational emotions and you're perceiving a situation, you get stuck. You have, I call it blinders. Like, you are just, this is all you see. You can't see outside of that. But when you've grown through that experience, and I call it being a student, that you learn and grow from the experience, take the value, the golden nuggets, as we've said, to learn the value of the experience. And then you go in and you're doing your work and you're going into a more of a loving space. You, from a loving space, cannot look back on those past experiences with the same eyes, with the same vision, with the same emotions. For me, I mean, and this comes through the biggest, I think the hardest thing for people to do is forgive, a forgiveness process. And so with that example, when you're in the anger, you want to point the finger and blame. When you move into a loving space, then you have more compassion. And the way it developed for me was understanding that we're all spirit and body, that it's just the way we were raised. It's our programming. It's the adults that are around us when we were little that you know, put their behaviors and habits and verbiage and all their crap on us, thinking they're doing the best. Well, they were doing the best they could with us. But recognizing they were doing the best they could at that time. And so were you. All through your life, you've been doing the best you can. So recognizing in my growth with energy, being a spirit and body, knowing that we're the essence of pure love and joy already. And now that puts me in a compassionate state when I look back at the experiences that I may view as having any kind of wrongdoing, whether it was on my part or another person's part. I can say, well, Amie, you're pretty messed up in the head and the emotions at that time, and that's what you knew how to do. So now we know better. We can do better. The people that were in that situation with you, they're messed up in the head and in their emotions as well. They were doing the best they knew how to do. If they choose to learn and grow in themselves, then they know to do and be better as well. But I'm not responsible for them. I'm only responsible for myself. So now where I'm at, when I look back on experiences that I've had that were uncomfortable, the compassion that I have for myself and others is like something I never thought I would ever experience. Not when you're in the anger and that shame and guilt. You're just like, ah, you're crazy. I was a crazy lady, but now just looking back, and now any experience that come up, it's so much easier to move through.
True.
There's so much more ease now. Even if somebody's like, the people in my life, in my immediate experience, that may view a situation as an oh my God moment, I'm just like we talked last week, trust the process. It's happening for a reason. There's something for me to learn through this. I'm having this experience for whatever reason it might be. I'm involved in this or I'm witnessing it. So just be open, see what transpires, and just take a moment. You know, don't try to project yourself in the future and worry and what ifs. Moment by moment. And when you're in that moment by moment, then you can receive that intuitive guidance. And the intuitive guidance, the more you listen and the more you follow those little nudges and those subtle messages and be guided, trusting the process to help guide you, trusting the process of the universe to help guide you, then life is easier. this is huge for me. It builds your self-confidence because you are trusting yourself. And that's what the part of the issue with self-confidence is, that we're not showing up for ourselves. We keep letting ourselves down.
Yeah.
We keep getting into that harmful relationship, or we keep overspending, or we're not losing the weight because we're too lazy to look into a different eating habits, right? We don't show up for ourselves, so we lose that self-confidence. So trusting your intuition and practicing that more, because it is a practice. It's not like overnight I trust my intuition. No, this has been a journey like no other. The memes where the angels are sitting there like, here we go again. My angels, I just can imagine. But that trust, to listen to the intuitive guidance that you are receiving, to be quiet enough to be in that space to receive it, to be present enough, to be focused in your present moment enough to receive those downloads from spirit. It will build your self-confidence. And there's no going back.
No, there is no going back.
It's so uncomfortable to go back to those emotions, those lower vibrational emotions. It really does not feel good.
Talked about forgiveness, and it reminds me, because I remember in one of the classes that I was at that you were instructing, you had said something about forgiveness, forgiving others, and that was one thing, but then it was forgiving yourself. And when you take the time to forgive yourself, and it's like I do it a lot, because like you said, we get a habit of beating ourselves up about stuff, or thinking that we are wrong, or we did something wrong, all these things, and we didn't. It's just forgiving myself, and I have forgiven myself so many times. And when you sit in that, when you say that, and you just sit in that, you feel almost like this tension released from the body, which guides me into the next thing. So I have a situation. Well, I don't know if I'd call it a situation. There's been an experience in my life that when this person pops into my head, it's usually not good thoughts. I'm not sure if it's my thoughts or if it's a thought coming from the other person, which I believe it's coming from the other person, a negative energy. But I would catch myself going into that with that, matching that same energy. So when you're an empath, you have a tendency to match people. So I would match immediately. Yeah, like, because you've been doing it forever. I was doing it for 50 years.
This is why we feel bipolar.
No shit. But I would feel this coming on, and it's like I would get into this ugly space, and it's like, man, I don't like it. I call it an ugly space because it didn't feel comfortable. And now I'm matching this other person's energy, like, you go ahead and do it, MF, because I'm gonna come at you. I'm gonna match your ass.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I started thinking, and this has been in the last week, that it hit me that every time it comes up, because I've been asking Archangel Michael, because it was one of my cards, that Archangel Michael, it's for me to lean on for the month of January, to remind me that he's there, and the collective consciousness and God and all the fun stuff. But asking for a better way to see this from, I always ask to see it from a bigger picture, from a higher understanding. And it wasn't for me to understand the situation. It was for me to understand me. Excuse me, that my lesson was that I'm dipping down into someone's energy that quick, how quick I can change my energy, and noticing how it didn't feel good. And then noticing that now every time that person pops in my head, I don't even, as soon as that energy is like, I feel it, I automatically send it love and light. It's not a, excuse me, a matter of a prayer or anything along those lines. It's just a matter of sending love and light. It's a matter of me not matching into that energy, because then it's like I believe, and I'm just practicing with all the stuff like everybody else is, but I believe if this person's thinking these thoughts, and now I'm thinking these thoughts to match him, now we're going in this, we're just speeding up this freaking snowball effect, how it's just rolling from the top of a hill down, and it's gaining momentum, and it's getting uglier as it goes, exactly, and bigger in the mind. So, and if we're creating all the time, now I'm creating more of it. So if every time the situation arises, for any situation, and we just send it love and light, first of all, that feels better. I don't have to have an answer. I don't have to know why it's happening. I don't have to, there's a million things that don't even matter. It's just taking that time to send love and light, which I couldn't have gotten that idea if it wasn't for my intuition guiding me. And now every time it pops up, and I'm noticing that any of the negative pops up less and less. It's like dissipating, which probably means that I'm helping out the other person as well, because I'm not feeding into that energy that they're in, that they've created, this effect that they've created. Because again, we go to stories. We tell ourselves stories all the time, and we believe those stories after a while. So it's like, really, when we go through this process of trusting the intuition, we start recognizing the story. We start recognizing why we created the story, you know, because it's out of a defense thing. It's out of a fear thing, you know, a fear of being wrong. I can't be wrong. If I say something first, then I'm not the wrong one. I'm the good person. I'm the whatever. And it's not a matter of any of that stuff. It's a matter, how does that feel? Because mostly it doesn't feel good.
Yep. When we recognize that right away. So when you're in a space like where Bev and I are with ourselves, when you're matching somebody else's lower vibrational energy, we know immediately it doesn't feel good. We know that. Hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
Okay? Hear me when I say that. Hurt people hurt people. So that puts us in survival mode. And it's like an animal, a wild animal. You get them cornered and they're going to lash out. So if somebody's coming at you with aggression or unkind words, we revert to survival mode and feel like we're getting pushed into a corner. So then we lash out. And it's because we're reverting to that survival mode. But also recognizing that when we're lashing back at somebody, that gives us an awareness that we still have some work to do. We're getting triggered. We are reverting back to our old selves. We immediately recognize it doesn't feel good, but we know what to do with that energy because we've been there for so long. And I've done it myself. And somebody will come at me and claws come out and you rear up and you're just like, let's go, bring it. I'm going to whoop some ass today. But inside me, right? That's the outer shell. But inside me, I'm like, what are you doing? This doesn't feel good. Why are you doing this? But my ego and my survival skills are just like, bring it, right? And so it's this internal being out of harmony with myself and my spirit. Only because, and just listen, that only because I was in that survival mode for so long, for so many years from birth, that is what I know. And that is my go-to when I get triggered. But the more I practice being in a state of compassion and love, it gets easier to take a breath and then step into the situation. If somebody comes at me now, I can just pause. I can take a breath. I can take a moment to contemplate the situation. I can take a moment to get grounded and centered. I can do that. I give myself permission to do that. I am in a responsive mode instead of a reactive mode. When you're in reactive mode, it's immediate survival mode, and you turn into the crazy person. When you are grounded and take a breath and pause and give it a moment of thought, and you like reel yourself in, notice how you feel, then you're in a responsive mode, and that actually gives you more power and more control. and give yourself permission to do that. Just take a breath. If somebody attack, verbally or aggressively in an energetic way, and I'm not talking about physical. If somebody attacks you physically, definitely you want to be in that survival mode and defend yourself in the best way you can. But like an argument, that's them. That's their deal. They're having an issue. The issue comes when you get triggered by their words, their facial expression, their energy, their tone of voice. If you get triggered and react aggressively, now you've lost power and control. You've actually handed that over to them. So, as an introvert growing up, I was very quiet, very observing. I was observing. I can't even think of the word. I observed the adults around me. I listened to conversations, right? I just was attentive to what was happening. So introverts, we're quiet. We stay back in the back of the room. We don't have a lot of conversation. And the thing, a statement that was very common as I was growing up, and I heard it from so many people, was, watch out for the quiet ones. Because the quiet ones, we have a lot of information. We have a lot of knowledge. We're listening when you don't think we're listening. We're tuned in when you don't even know it. You're too busy running your mouth, and we're just calmly and quietly sitting there listening and observing. And it was just a common statement. Watch out for the quiet ones.
Honey.
And now that holds true in the sense that I'm centered, I'm grounded, I'm calm, I'm good. You wanna come at me with an argument? Go ahead. I'm gonna maintain my power in me. It's not yours to take. It's not yours for me to allow you to have it. It's mine.
Right. And that's the thing, most people don't even realize how much when you get into an argument, or someone passes you on the street and then they slow down and you're pissed off at them, we don't realize how much energy we're giving away to that person right now, unless you stop and think, okay, what is this? I mean, this could be saving me from something. This could, I don't know, maybe I'll be able to see something. That's just like listening. When we listen more, we hear more. And it's not just what's going on in front of us in the physical. There's more going on in the non-physical, in the more energetic forms.
Yep. And think about this, when you're in that survival mode, aggressive mode, reactive mode, you don't have the ability, in my perspective, that you don't have the ability to get the intuitive guidance.
No.
To make those more rational decisions. You're just like, right, attack.
Yeah, well, because in the physical, right, what happens is the blood and stuff, and where our adrenaline goes up, it releases, good Lord, I can't even think of what it's called, but anyways, it releases endorphins into the body for fight or flight. So now you're no longer supplying all the needs that our organs need, that our body needs, that our center. So we're no longer center. Everything is outside of us. We're like ready to go, like either to fight or flight. So it's like how could you receive any intuitive messages unless, I mean, you can be like Jackie Chan or, some of these other people that have been around that they can find their center, and still be able to be reactive, but not, they're more from an observing point. They're more from a defensive, holding their center, their ground.
Yeah, I think it's, I want to say jujitsu, where when somebody is coming at you, you're using their momentum to take them down, not yours. It's like your energy is effortless, because it's their momentum, and you're just maneuvering them in a direction that you want them to go to get them down on the ground and pin them or whatever they do. And that's, I mean, it was similar in just having an argument. Let them yell and scream and I don't know, do what they do. And you just be here, focus on your breath, recognize this isn't mine, this is theirs. And as long as I'm in tune with myself, centered, I am allowing the inner guidance to come to what's my next move. What direction am I going to go in now? Who do I need to call in this moment? Again, just recognizing the difference that if there's any physical harm going on, I mean, yeah, you're going to be in survival mode right now. Taking a breath, just pause. I heard Wayne Dyer say this, and this is when I was still in my emotional craziness, and he said, if somebody asks you a question, because this really made me nervous when people would ask me questions, and I needed to, for my good enough story, right? And I'm not good enough. I needed to have an answer to every question that was ever asked to me. Otherwise, I'm not good enough, right? Yeah. And I heard Wayne Dyer say, when somebody asks me a question, whether I'm in their presence or I'm on on the phone, I just take a breath. And I give myself a few seconds to contemplate my answer. And sometimes they're looking at me like, are you going to talk? Are you going to say anything? And he's like, I just give myself permission to do that. And when he said it, it's that, when somebody tells you you have permission to do this, we had this conversation too about phone calls and texts, but when somebody gives you permission, when you've been in the space of not having that, sometimes you need somebody else to say, you have permission to pause before you give an answer. You have permission to not answer the phone or send a text back right away. And whatever the length of that pause is, that's for you to decide. There could be somebody asks you a question and you're just like, all right, well, I gotta think about this, and just walk away. That pause might be an hour, it might be 3 days, I don't know. Maybe you never talk to them again. Right? So it's allowing yourself to keep control of your power. Because as soon as you lash out, as soon as you spew off those words or you get angry, you're handing that power to the person who's involved in the situation.
Yep. Willingly.
And then that again, that lowers and affects your self-confidence.
It lowers your energy, and then you start noticing if you don't check it at some points, then you kind of stay in that space all day long. Like you keep bringing more of that same energy to you, experience after experience. But as soon as you acknowledge it, and that's practice. That is practice. It's training yourself to be aware of your own emotions and how you feel. And then as soon as you recognize, because we've done it, a lot of us have done that, where we just, kind of go out in the world willy-nilly all day long and just let it kind of, like a ping pong ball, bing you all over the place. And it doesn't even have to be that way, because as soon as you stop and you're aware of your energy, and maybe it is taking a break, maybe it's taking more than, going and taking a 5-minute break, just relaxing, taking some breaths, because that's so important. And that was one thing I remember you telling me about, this take a breath. And then I remember when we first started doing these recordings, or we started doing the class, not these recordings, but we started doing other things. And I remember you saying, take a breath. And it's like, I always felt like I had to have the answer. Like I always had, and I had to have it right now. There couldn't be a chance to think about it. And now finally I'm in this place where I can recognize sometimes I just don't have an answer right now. Mm-hmm. And that's all right. And like you said, maybe you'll never have the answer for that. maybe it'll never happen in the presence of that person, or by the time you know you have an answer to it, maybe you won't even remember who you were speaking to. And it's not a big deal. It's just being easy on yourself, and the information is going to come to you when it's supposed to come to you.
Absolutely. And the first time I was in my corporate job when I was learning about this, when I heard Wayne Dyer say, you know, take a breath, pause. And I was in my corporate job, I was doing payroll and HR, and either my supervisor or my boss came in and they're like asking me questions, wanting these details. And I just said, inside, I was very nervous because this was the beginning of a practice. It was uncomfortable to me. Inside, I was nervous of saying this, but just very matter of factly, I just looked at him and said, okay, I don't have that answer in this moment, but I will get it to you. So give me some time and I'll get you this as soon as I can, as soon as I find it. And they just, again, I don't remember if it's my actual boss or my supervisor just looked at me like I had two heads. Like, what do you mean you don't have the, and it was very nerve-wracking to me because of my not good enough story. I didn't have the answer right away that they wanted, and they're my authority. And if I don't bow down to the authority and get them what, you know, have this readily available, that means I'm not good enough. And then I beat myself up, right? We just go down that avenue. And I just said, I'll look it up and I'll get it to you. And so kind of them standing there like, and I would just start looking. You know, you can stand there all you want, but you're not going to get it till I find the information. So whether you stand here or sit here or leave, it's going to take me the same amount of time. So, you know, I didn't say that to him. That's what I was thinking. But just being able to pause and say, I don't have that answer right now, but I will get it to you as soon as I can find it, was huge. That was huge. And I practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. And then when my first class, when somebody asked me a question and I did not have the answer, I had the confidence enough. It was still uncomfortable, but I had the confidence enough to say, in a group of people, okay, because you have to understand an introverted background, a not good enough story background, this is very uncomfortable. Even though I was portraying confidence in being the teacher, inside I was crazy because I was like, oh my God, right? So in a class, a group of people, and somebody asked me a question and I didn't have the answer. And I just said, you know, I don't have the answer to that, but I will find an answer and I will get back to you. What's your email address, or what's your phone number, or I'll, you know, and I got to practice that over and over and over. We give so much power to these circumstances that confirm that we're not good enough. And the fact is, if I knew everything, why would I be in this body? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't need to be here. I'd be done. My life would be done. I would move on. We're here to learn and grow, and grow in those emotions and grow in using our mind. It's okay to not have the answers. It's okay.
And you don't realize, you know, we get all stressed out when we're doing something like that, especially practicing it, but you don't realize how much of a benefit you are to even to your boss or whoever was in front of you. They may not have recognized it right away, but if it was presented to them several times, because it was their learning lesson too. Right. So if they're the ones that keep getting presented with us, it's also letting them recognize they have permission. Because we get into, you know, we've learned so many things from growing up, and then a lot of times it's not, you know, we think we got to have the answer right now. And it's learning to slow down and take a break and take a breath, and being okay with not having the answer right now, because that helps someone else recognize I don't have to have the answer right now. That's just like recognizing when someone's crying, in a situation when I thought they were a strong person. It didn't mean they weren't strong. It just it's given me permission to just be me. It's all right to just do these things. It's all right to go with the flow. There's nothing wrong with me. And it's like the more that we all start being more authentic and true to ourselves, it allows everyone else to be authentic and true to themselves. They don't have to be in this facade anymore.
What? Absolutely. Part of the thing is that here's what I recognized, okay? My brain has a lot of information in it, so much information. And I got to where I started discerning what I wanted to keep in my head and what didn't need to stay there. So some people have really good memories and they can rattle off information. Great for them. I'm not one of those people unless it's something that's important to me that I've retained in my brain, right? And so even doing payroll, and somebody says, well, what are the numbers for this? I'm like, keeping in mind, information is stored in our computer system. And at the time, I had racks of binders full of information. So to me, my theory came that if it's stored somewhere and I can look it up, I don't need to keep it in my head. That makes no sense to me. Why am I trying to memorize this stuff when I'm dealing with 2,000 employees, 4 companies, and so much going on? I'm not that kind of human to retain everything I've read, every number I've seen. Like, no. I can look it up. If I have the ability to look it up, this head is available for things that I feel is important to retain.
That's okay.
And it's okay. And I give myself permission to do that.
Yeah. It's funny because I was just talking to someone about this. I don't, directions were not my thing. Time is not my thing. Dates are not my thing. History was not my thing. I think there was something else in there too, but it's like it was never something that I gravitated towards. And I always felt my whole life, I felt like there was something wrong with me. And now I recognize that those things don't really matter. They may matter here in this time space reality, but in reality, in the collective consciousness, it doesn't matter. None of those things matter. They're not something I'm not saying that history doesn't matter, but I'm just saying I was not the person to remember the dates. It wasn't, to me, there's so much more to life than all that stuff. So for me, and I've realized it just more recently that it's like, it's all right that I didn't know all those things or didn't want to know all those things, or I slept in history class all the time. It's all right. I was voted the one that slept most in class. So hello. But I mean, not something to be so proud of, but it's like it didn't catch my attention. I didn't gravitate towards it. It wasn't something that interested in me. And I feel like because there's been a lot of non-truths that have been put into a lot of history books, and a lot of information that's out there is not always 100% accurate, but it wasn't something I gravitated towards. It didn't feel right to me. Even when I didn't know that I was using my feelings as a guide, it didn't feel right. So I didn't gravitate towards it. It didn't catch my attention. I never got excited about it. I appreciate people that do, because I watch them and listen to them. I mean, I'll listen to people have conversations like, wow, you guys remember all those dates? And it's, for me, it's just, I guess I'm just more present. That stuff just doesn't seem to be something that's a factor in my life. And that's okay.
Yeah, and part of that programming actually comes from school, that we're supposed to memorize the information that we read, take a test, and then that test is going to tell us whether we're good enough or not.
True, very true.
And I'm with Bev. History, English, even though English is important, I know history is important too. But especially historical events and dates and names and where, and oh my goodness, I had no interest in it for one. Really, because I mean, to be honest with you, Um, it was the presentation that was boring. And I know it's not the teacher's place to entertain us, but to have a monotone teacher who has no excitement, who's been doing it for 20 years and has lost his interest, like, yeah, my head went right onto the desk for the whole hour. But then having to take the test to decide, because whether I memorize this stuff or not, whether I'm good enough or not in that topic. Even today, if you gave me something about to me now, I'm more interested in history, like, historical movies and stuff. I don't read history books, but just I'll watch a like a historical show or documentary. I'm still not going to remember the dates and places and all that when it's over, because to me, that's not, this brain is storing things that I feel is beneficial to get me through this life and to help others get them through this life. That's the type of information. So the books that are behind me are about spirituality, auras, like colors, past lives, right? Being centered, grounded, meditation. That's the information I retain. That's what I do as a practice every day. That's important to me. Having my power, having control of my power within me, listening to my intuitive guidance to help me have ease in this life. That's what's up here. I can watch a documentary about history. I can watch a YouTube video about any topic in this world about learning a language or learning how to write. There are videos to watch. I don't need to retain all that.
I agree.
So it's like, what is really the point of retaining all that information? What is it? What, and you can answer this to me if you have an answer. What benefit is it to me in my life with what I do and how I live? What is the benefit to me to have retained historical information? How to treat people. If slavery is the issue right now, racism is the issue right now, great. History has told us, don't treat people like that. It's not nice. Treat people better. Okay, I'm doing that. I don't need to know dates and times and places and people. Why do I need to continue to remember that certain people were hanged for things that they did, or certain people were burned at the stake or drowned? Why do I need to retain all that information? It just comes down to, don't treat people like that. It's not nice.
That's right.
Be and do better. That's what I'm choosing to do in this present moment. Because we don't have a past, we don't have a future, we have right now. So how are you treating yourself first and foremost, and other people? I'm not treating them like they did then. And I intend to get better and better as I grow. So even as the person I am today is not going to be the same person I am in a year from now or tomorrow.
So essentially you're changing history.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's just like telling a kid to go sit in the corner and think about what you did wrong. It feels like some of that stuff.
Yeah. So give yourself permission to be okay with whatever you're doing to benefit yourself and to live in this moment and to be and do better. Give yourself permission. It's okay. Pause before answering.
It's okay to be different. You don't have to be like everybody else. I don't have to like all the same things that somebody else likes. This is what I'm pulled towards. And that's us trusting our own intuition. If you're drawn to history, so that's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need history teachers. We
Exactly.
need them in schools. They need, certain, there are certain careers that need to know that information.
True.
In my profession, I don't need to know that information. I just need to know how people were treated, how to treat people better.
Yes.
That's the practice, right? So
Exactly.
if whatever your career or your position is, and in the information that you do need to retain, so be it. That's you. I know the information. I mean, a psychologist needs to retain the information of how the brain works and how the brain and body's connected. They they need to know all this, the emotions. We're all learning something different. Energy work is similar to massage, but as an energy practitioner, Reiki practitioner, I don't need to know all the muscles and bones. Bev does. She needs to know the muscles, the bones, the glands, all of it, the organs. I don't have to know that. And I don't know a lot about the internal body as to where everything is located. But you know what? In my bookshelf, I have a few books that tell me.
And it really all boils down is to energy anyways. I mean, really, just, it is, it's just about energy. And it's funny when you say something to someone, like, for instance, my thumb was hurting. My thumb was hurting, and it's like, finally I looked it up in the book and I see on there, certain things that resonated with me. And I was like, oh, yeah, here we go, Bev. Because we have suppressed emotions, or emotions still not being good enough, or whatever it is. It's just, it still shows up. If you don't have the physical trigger or the emotional trigger, you're going to have the physical trigger. It shows up. It's just to not let go of it. Don't let it keep going out of control. But it's just paying attention to the energy, and not a lot of people get that. Not yet.
Not yet.
The more it's presented, you'll see a little bit more. But it's like everything to me, everything shows up in the body from some sort of an energetic situation, something you haven't looked at, something you haven't dealt with, something you stuffed, however you want to look at it. But it has to do with what I do to me.
Yep. And this is amazing. The
That's
body
right.
is so incredible. So incredible.
Thank God.
Yeah. So I think we hit on some good stuff today. What do you think?
I think it was some good stuff to look at, to think about, and given permission, and, forgiveness. Forgiveness is so huge. And
Yeah.
and like we've talked about before, it's not forgiving somebody else for what they've done. If it's been wrong or something was bad to you, you're not forgiving the crime or the deed or whatever it was. You're just forgiving because, like you said, we know that that person, a hurt person, hurts. They don't have any other tools to see anything other in any other way. They can't see it differently. They can't. You're not going to understand why they are the way they are, because you see things so differently. But we can still love unconditionally, and loving unconditionally doesn't mean that you have to stay in this space, because you can do it from afar, sending love and light.
Absolutely. And I think we have a video on forgiveness. I can attach it to this video. Um, but with that, my friends, you can watch this video many times over and hear something different, because each time you listen to our videos, or each time if you have a personal development type of book, each time you read that same book, you're in a different space. So you receive different information, and you'll swear you could listen to this video 3, 4, 5 times and hear something different each time, because each time you're shifting your own energy and your own mindset, that you're going to swear that Bev and I redid the video and reposted it over and over and over. And the fact is, you changed, so you're hearing something different. So even if everything that Bev and I talk about are topics that are forever. It's not just topics and information that pertains to just today and what's happening today. This is information on a daily basis based on where you are with yourself, mind, body, spirit. So maybe you listen to this once, but I would suggest listening 2, 3, 4, 5 times. This video or any of the other ones that we've done. So thank you for being here with me, and thank you for being here with us, for taking the time out of your day. And we know that your time is very valuable, and that's why we want to bring information that's beneficial in your life journey. So with that, thanks for tuning in to Tea Time with Amie and Bev. We appreciate you. We love you. And we feel grateful that you're watching or listening to us and our wisdom.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, Bev. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Have a great day.
You too.